She was sold to the most dangerous man in Seoul to pay her stepfather's debt. But when the Korean Mafia boss lifted her veil and whispered, "We've met before, Keelian," she realized the stranger she was marrying was the same man who once saved her life in the rain and never told her his name. Drop your name and where you're watching from, and tell us, would you marry a stranger to save your family? The dress was not hers. Keelian Aves stood in front of a cracked mirror in the back room of a Seoul banquet hall, staring at a woman she didn't recognize. White silk, pearl buttons, hair pinned so tightly her scalp ached. She looked like a sacrifice dressed as a bride. "Stop pulling at the neckline." Her stepfather, Choi Bum-soo, appeared in the doorway. Thick neck, thin patience, the permanent smell of cigarettes and bad decisions. "You look fine." "I look like I'm being auctioned." "You are," he said flatly. "And you should be grateful someone bid." Keelian turned away from the mirror. She was 26 years old, a translator. She spoke 4 languages, survived 2 countries, and had clawed her way out of poverty with nothing but stubbornness and a scholarship. She had plans, a visa application, a studio apartment she'd almost saved enough for. And then Choi Bum-soo had borrowed 4 million won from the Park Syndicate and lost it all in 3 weeks. The solution, apparently, was her. "Park Sun-ho is a reasonable man," her stepfather had said, like that meant anything. "He asked for you specifically. Consider it an honor." She had considered it a nightmare. She knew the name Park Sun-ho. Everyone in Seoul's underground circles did. The Park Syndicate controlled 3 districts, 2 shipping ports, and enough officials to make problems disappear quietly. Park Sun-ho was its head. 29 years old, brilliant, ruthless, and completely unknown by face. No verified photos, no public appearances, just a name that made rooms go silent. Keelian picked up her bouquet, white peonies, not her choice, and stared at the door. She counted her exits. Old habit. She'd been doing it since she was 12, living in her mother's 3rd apartment in 2 years, always knowing where the nearest window was. There were 2 exits. Neither would save her today. The wedding coordinator knocked once. "It's time." Keelian exhaled. She walked out. What would you do in Keelian's shoes? Walk out or face the unknown? Tell us below. The hall was full of people Keelian didn't know. 300 guests and expensive silence. No warmth, no celebration, just the cold pageantry of power announcing itself. She walked. She counted steps. She kept her eyes forward. The man at the altar had his back to her. Tall, black suit. Shoulders like someone who'd carried heavy things for a long time and stopped apologizing for it. Something about the line of him made her chest tighten in a way she couldn't name. The officiant nodded. The man turned. Keelian stopped, breathing. She knew that face. Not from headlines, not from rumors. From a rainy Tuesday 3 years ago outside Hongdae Station, when she'd collapsed on the pavement from exhaustion and fever, her groceries scattered, her body done negotiating. When every person walked past her like she was furniture. Except one. He had crouched beside her without a word, checked her pulse with 2 fingers, called an ambulance. Stayed until it arrived, umbrella tilted over her, saying nothing. When she'd tried to ask his name through chattering teeth, he'd simply said, "Rest, you're safe." She never saw him again. And now he was standing at her altar. His gray eyes found hers across the distance. Steady, still, like the moment before rain. Recognition moved through them, slow, certain. He leaned forward as she reached him, close enough that only she could hear. 4 words, quiet as a secret. "We've met before, Keelian." The room kept moving, the officiant kept speaking. 300 people, watched with polite, oblivious faces. But Keelian's entire world had just rearranged itself completely. She stared at him. He stared back, and didn't look away. She said, "I do," because her legs forgot how to run. The reception swallowed them immediately. Champagne towers, strangers in designer suits, the suffocating perfume of a celebration nobody actually felt. Keelian stood near the floor-to-ceiling window with a glass of water, mapping exits. 4 this time. Progress. Park Sun-ho appeared at her side without sound. She hated that. How quiet he was for someone so dangerous. "You remembered me," he said. Not a question. "I remembered someone," she replied carefully. "I didn't know that person ran a criminal empire. I prefer enterprise. I prefer honesty." He was quiet a moment. Outside, Seoul blazed in evening light. Relentless, indifferent, beautiful. "You left before the ambulance came back," she said. "I tried to find you." Something moved through his expression, brief, controlled. "I know," he said. She turned sharply. "You know? You asked the paramedics, they told me." Her jaw tightened. "And you didn't think to—" "I thought it was cleaner," he said quietly. "One moment. Finished." "Clean," she repeated. The word tasted bitter. "Right. Is that what this is too? Clean? My stepfather's debt becomes your convenient wife?" Park Sun-ho looked at her directly. Something in his gray eyes was more complicated than she expected from a man like him. "No," he said. "Then what is it?" He didn't answer immediately. The silence between them was thick enough to hold. "I didn't know it was you," he finally said. "Not until you walked through those doors." She studied his face for the lie. She didn't find one. That scared her more than anything else today. He gave her a room. Not the room, a room, separate wing, private entrance. A standing agreement communicated through his assistant in 3 bullet points. Breakfast at 7, no interference in hurry. Schedule, 1 shared dinner per week. "1 dinner," Keelian said flatly when the assistant finished. "Mr. Park believes in—" "Tell Mr. Park I believe in informed consent, and we're already behind." The assistant blinked. Left quickly. The apartment was enormous. 43rd floor, floor-to-ceiling Seoul. The kind of view that reminded you how small your problems were supposed to feel. It didn't work on Keelian. She set up her translation work on the dining table that first morning, laptop open, headphones in, aggressively normal. She had 3 contracts. Deadlines were real even when your life collapsed. Park Sun-ho found her there at noon. He said nothing about the occupation of his dining table. He made tea, 2 cups, without asking, and set one beside her laptop. She looked at it, looked at him. "I don't need— green tea reduces nausea," he said. "You didn't eat at the reception." She stared. "You noticed that." "I notice everything." She wanted to say something sharp. Instead, she wrapped her hands around the cup because it was warm and she was more exhausted than her pride could manage. They existed in the same silence for 11 minutes. It should have been uncomfortable, it wasn't. That bothered her deeply. "Why me?" she asked without looking up. Specifically, there were other options. He sat across from her, considered the question with the seriousness of someone who didn't answer carelessly. "Because 3 years ago," he said, "you looked at me like I was a person, not a name, not a threat." Keelian looked up. He was already looking at her. "And I've thought about that longer than I should have," he said. She found the file by accident. 4th day. She was looking for a phone charger in the study and found a folder instead. Her name on the tab, her photograph inside. Not recent, old. Her university ID photo. Her mother's address in Busan, her scholarship records. Her hands went cold. She was holding it when he walked in. The silence was a different kind now. Sharp-edged. "How long?" she said, voice very quiet. "Have you had this?" Park Sun-ho looked at the folder. He didn't pretend. 2 years. Her stomach dropped. 2 years. "After Hongdae, He stopped. Chose words carefully. "I wanted to know you were all right." "You investigated me." "I kept a file. There's a difference." "There really isn't." She set it down precisely. "You watched me for 2 years. You knew who I was when Choi Bum-soo came to you. You knew exactly what you were getting." He said nothing, which was its own answer. Did you engineer this? Her voice cracked slightly. She hated that. Did you let him borrow money knowing he couldn't pay? Knowing he'd offer me? No. Then tell me the truth. All of it. He sat down. For the first time since she'd met him, Park Sun-ho looked like something other than controlled. He looked tired. Your stepfather came to me, he said. I could have refused, given him another option. But you didn't. No. His jaw tightened. I didn't. The room was very still. Because of the file, she said. Because of Hongdae Station, he said quietly. Because I never stopped wondering what happened to you. And when he said your name, he stopped. I made a selfish decision, I know that. Killian stood up and walked out. She didn't slam the door. That would have given too much away. This is the moment everything changed. Do you think he deserves a chance to explain, or is this unforgivable? Drop your thoughts below. She didn't speak to him for 2 days. He didn't push. No knocking, no messages. Just tea appearing outside her door every morning like a quiet, stubborn apology. She drank it. She told herself it was practical. On the third morning, she emerged at 6 a.m. and found him on the balcony, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking at the city like it owed him something. She leaned against the doorframe. You don't sleep, she observed. Lightly, he said. Alpha habit, always monitoring. Alpha, she repeated. You run an organization of how many people? Enough that someone always needs something. She stepped outside. The city below was just waking. That specific Seoul dawn, gray and gold and relentless. Tell me something true, she said. Not strategic, just true. He was quiet for a moment. I was 19 when I took over the syndicate, he said. My father died. There was no one else. I didn't choose it. I just became it? She looked at him. Did you want to? I wanted to study architecture. The ordinariness of it hit her somewhere unguarded. I wanted a studio apartment in Mapo-gu, she said quietly. 12 square meters, just mine. He glanced at her. That's very specific. I had a floor plan saved on my phone for 2 years. Something in his expression shifted, softened barely perceptibly. Tell me something true, he said. Returning it. She looked at the city. That night at Hongdae, she said, I was at my lowest. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I just lost my job. I thought nobody would ever... She stopped. You stayed. A stranger stayed. You look like someone worth staying for, he said simply. The dawn moved around them. Neither spoke for a long time after that. It came from a woman named Yura. Tall, polished, the kind of beautiful that announced itself before she entered the room. She arrived at the apartment on a Wednesday, walked past Killian in the hallway like she was part of the furniture. Yura, Sunho said, and his voice changed. Softer, familiar. Killian stood very still. The council is asking about the marriage, Yura said, setting documents on the table. Whether it's legitimate, whether she understands the terms. She understands enough. Does she understand that the council required a park heir within 2 years? That this marriage was their ultimatum, not yours? She glanced at Killian with something not quite pity. Does she know she's a solution? The silence afterward was enormous. Killian looked at Sunho. He didn't deny it immediately. That half second was everything. Killian, is it true? She asked. Quiet, precise. It's more complicated than... Is it true? His jaw tightened. The council gave me conditions. The marriage was part of them. But that's not the only reason. So everything, she said. The tea, the balcony, the architecture, the file. Her voice didn't shake. She'd learned that from Vivian. All of it wrapped around a transaction I didn't know I was part of. That is not what this... I was your stepfather, she said, dressed in a better story. She walked to her room. She packed what she'd come with, which wasn't much, it never was. She didn't cry. She was done spending tears on people who calculated their kindness. But her hands shook as she folded her clothes. And that was worse. He found her at the door with her suitcase. He looked at it, looked at her, said nothing for a long moment. I won't stop. You, he said finally. Good. But I need you to hear one thing first. She didn't move toward the door. She also didn't move toward him. She stood in the exact middle and waited. The council gave me an ultimatum, he said. Yes, marry within 60 days or surrender leadership. And yes, I accepted your stepfather's terms because the timing aligned. I know. I'm not finished. His voice was low, steady. I could have married anyone, Keelian. There were names on a list, arranged candidates, willing families. She was quiet. I chose you, he said, because of a Tuesday 3 years ago when a woman with a fever and an empty stomach looked at me like I was worth something. I chose you because I kept a file not to control you, kids, but because I couldn't stop wanting to know you were okay. He crossed the room, stopped 2 feet away. I handled this wrong. I should have told you everything. You deserve to choose this with full information, and I took that from you. His voice dropped. I know that. And I'm sorry. Not strategically, actually. Keelian stared at him. She was good at finding lies, survival skill. Her mother had taught her by example. She didn't find one. If you walk out, he said quietly, I won't follow, but I need you to know. This stopped being about the council the morning you drank that tea and pretended you didn't need it. The door was right there. She looked at it. Then she looked at him. You have one chance, she said, to tell me everything. No strategy, no omissions. He nodded once. Sit down. She left the suitcase at the door. She sat down. He talked for 2 hours. The council, his father's death, the syndicate's structure, the genuine weight of leading something that protected hundreds of families who had nowhere else to go. The file, every detail, every decision, every place he'd chosen wrong. Keelian listened. She asked questions. He answered every one. When he finished, the city was dark outside and they were both sitting on the floor. She'd moved there around hour 1 and he'd followed without comment, which she noted and didn't say anything about. The council's air clause, she said. What happens if we don't? I handle the council, he said. That's not your burden. It became my burden when you put a ring on my finger. Fair. He almost smiled. Then we handle it together, on your terms, your timeline. She looked at him for a long moment. This man who had crouched in the rain when nobody else stopped. Who kept files out of worry, not control. Who wanted to study architecture and became something harder instead. Who chose her? Badly, but genuinely. I want my name on a lease, she said. A real one, somewhere that's mine. Done. I want to keep my translation work. I wouldn't dare suggest otherwise. And I want you to talk to me like that, she said. Like you just did. Real, no performance. He held her gaze. I can do that. She exhaled slowly, looked at the city, 43 floors of Seoul blazing and indifferent and somehow comforting. You stayed in the rain, she said quietly, when nobody else did. You look like someone worth staying for, he said. The same words. The echo of them landed differently now, heavier, truer. She reached over and put her hand flat against his. He turned his palm up and held it. Outside, Seoul hummed its permanent frequency. Below them, hundreds of people lived ordinary lives inside an extraordinary city, never knowing that 43 floors above, something irreversible had just decided to become permanent. Not because of a council, not because of a debt. Because two people who had found each other once in the rain had been given improbably, impossibly, a second chance. And this time, neither of them walked away. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and ring the bell. New stories drop every week. And tell us in the comments, did you see that rain twist coming? We read every single one. Every single.